Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. Pretty excited today because I get to try 3 things I've never had before in my life, and blind, so I don't know where they fell. I just know that these are all sort of like American takes on malt whiskey that are maybe a little bit innovative in some capacity. So we're sort of straying from the standard a little bit and embracing that pioneer spirit as Americans, right? We're proud of that, right? And we'll see what we come up with here. So 3 different distilleries, 3 different products, 3 different deviations from the norm, and all of them blind. So I will taste them, I will rank them from my favorite to least favorite, and then we'll reveal what they have been. Now, obviously, when I edit this later, I will at that point have known what these have been. So I will be sure to include them on screen with my infographics so that you know the basic statistics and information about each and every one of these pours, so that as I'm tasting it and giving notes, you might be able to piece some things together and be like, oh, okay, well, I understand why he's saying that or why he's getting that note. Or maybe quite the opposite, be like, this dude's way friggin' off, which is totally possible. I'm like that sometimes. But let's go ahead and dive into this. We'll start with the very first one from left to right, and we'll see what we get. Sound good? Got my notepad here so I can take notes as I go and score things. Man, the nose of this just is screaming American single malt. In fact, it even gives me that sort of telltale raisin note and bran cereal. I get bran cereal and raisins a lot on American single malts. I think it's just that barley content. It's not particularly complex on the nose per se. I think that if this is supposed to be an experimental deviation from the standard kind of a thing, maybe a more adventurous pour, I'm not sure I would be able to pick it apart from just a standard American single malt on the nose alone. But we could be putting the cart before the horse there. Give it a little gentle agitation here. I'm getting a sort of like a lemon drop note the more I sit with this a bit on the nose. Like a candied lemon drop. Alright, well, let's try it. Cheers. Well, the palate is definitely a deviation. Okay, that does not give me strictly American single malt vibes. There's something different going on in here for sure. That sweet bran cereal with a little bit of that glaze on it, definitely I get hit with that right up front, that sweet bran cereal, but then after that, some other things start to set in a little bit. I know this sounds bad, but I think of Pine Sol. Remember Pine Sol? We were kids growing up. That's Pine Sol, baby! You know those commercials? You know the ones I'm talking about. The power of Pine Sol. Yeah, sweet bran cereal, then followed by a little bit of that lemon vibe that we were getting on the nose. Comes into the mid palate. The finish pushes into some different territories. That Pine Sol, there's a little bit of a bitterness that sets in. Almost like the bitterness that you would get on coffee grounds, and I think a fresh cut grass as well. That sure is different. It's kind of wild. Interesting. Let's move on. All right, glass B here. Okay, the nose on this almost gives me crossover vibes. It's like caramely Kentucky whiskey meets, you know, really malty American single malt from the West Coast or something. A little bit of a hybrid. I get like a citrusy lime rind on the nose of this, which is really interesting. A little bit of caramel and butterscotch, and a fair amount of ethanol on the nose for sure. A little bit of a burn up in there. Yeah, it's weird. I almost get sort of like this Michter's vibe on the nose, even though I know this is a malt whiskey of some kind, which is bizarre. But for some reason, it makes me think of Michter's. Let's try it. Cheers. Man, that's different. It's sort of like this circus peanut candy sweetness up front, but it takes a hard turn into bitter chocolates. I think of, you know, dark chocolate bars. This sort of oats kind of a note. Think of oatmeal, creamy oatmeal. And this bitter earthy tone in here as well, which is peculiar. On the finish, that old-timey candy sweetness sort of settles in. I think of saltwater taffy and bitter oak. That sure is different. Huh, these are strange whiskeys. Let's wrap it up here with the last one. This one much softer. Think of a fresh southern biscuit, still hot, you know what I mean? You cut it open and a little bit of steam pours out. You put some butter on it. It melts quickly because it's still hot on the inside, and then you drizzle a little bit of honey on top. That's what makes me think of on the nose here. Think of a fresh warm biscuit with honey on top. It's not overly complex, but those are the predominant factors here. Is I'm getting honey and a lot of that fresh baked bread. Let's try it. Huh, tastes like American West Coast single malt. But there's this really heavy bready note. And I know some of the pours that that were supplied, right? None of these are mine. These are all been sent in by people. And I happen to remember that one of them is Westward. And I have plenty of Westward on my own shelves. I've got the rum cask finish, the Cabernet cask finish, the stout finish, the cask strength. I got a lot of Westward on my shelf. This reminds me of Westward distillate. So I think this is probably the Westward one that was sent in, the sourdough, because A, it tastes like Westward distillate, and B, I'm getting this heavy bready note. And so that's why I think that's what this is. Sweet honey, fresh baked bread. It's not complex. It's pretty straightforward, right down the middle fastball. Executed quite well though. It's pretty tasty. Okay, let me revisit these real quick so that I can rank them from my favorite to least favorite. Sound good? All right, here's where I'm at. All of these are interesting. I don't think I would actually buy any of them. And I like American single malts, but none of these are really speaking to me in a way that I really vibe with, that I think, oh yeah, I totally like that enough to have a full bottle of it. There's none of them that I disliked enough to say no thank you to. I would drink any of these, but I don't think any of them would warrant a spot on my shelf for my palate personally. That being said, I think my number one pick is going to be this one, Glass C. So Glass C is going to come forward. Actually, here's what I'll do. First place. So for today, Glass C, I think, was the best of the three. It was the least offensive. And I like that sweet honey on biscuits note. It wasn't complex, but it certainly was far from being offensive. Now, these other two are ranked very closely together for me. On my scale of 1 to 100, they are within 2 points of each other. Second place is going to go to Glass A. Third place is going to go to Glass B. That's my ranking. 2, 3, 1. So that's kind of where I fall with that. This one I kind of like some of that old-timey candy stuff that lemon drop that we got on there. I did like that. Glass B just had this lingering bitterness to it that wasn't offset by also something that was complementary. You know, I don't mind bitterness. I don't mind like bitter dark chocolate notes and absinthe and things of the sort, but you'd have to have a balance in order to offset the bitterness with something that's complementary, you know, that works in unison with it. But this just finishes bitter to me, and not in a great way. I don't mind it up front, but the finish, I'm really crazy about. So let's find out what these have been in order from last to first, okay? So Glass B. Oh, interesting. So this is New Riff, the New Riff single malt. Bam. New Riff single malt. This is a $70 bottle. It's 7 years old. Comes in at 113.8 proof. And if I remember correctly, this is like a sour mashed malt whiskey, right? It's kind of their whole thing. It's sort of the Kentucky sour mashing process done with a single malt. I don't think I care for that too much. Like I said, I didn't hate it. I wouldn't turn it down if somebody offered me a glass of it, but I certainly don't like it enough to go out there and buy a bottle. You know what I'm saying? I think if I were to give that one a score for my scale, just because of my reaction on the finish, I was like, what the heck did I just drink? I think I would give this, per my scale, I'm going to give it a 5.9. Okay? You know, it's okay. On its way to decent, it's okay. I don't think I would buy it. Maybe you would if you really get down with malt whiskeys in general. And this thing, I do like malt whiskeys. I don't go crazy for them, but I do like them. But I just don't think this delivered a sip that has a real good sense of identity. You know, I said it needed something to something complementary to work with that bitterness. It just feels like it hasn't really dialed in what it's supposed to be just yet. It's kind of leaning too far into certain directions on the tasting profile, but it doesn't have something in the opposite direction to sort of help offset it and give it some balance. It's a little too off the grid for me. So I think for that reason, I give it a 5.9, and it lands in last place today. Now, that being said, there are people who love everything New Riff puts out, and I do really like a lot of I just hit the desk with my pen, sorry. I do like a lot of New Riff products, especially like their rye is just such a great mixing rye, too, for old fashions, things of the sort. A lot of their single barrel offerings are fantastic. One bottle that really grew on me was their 8-year bottled and bond. Actually, I lied. I don't think that's bottled and bond, right? It's just 8-year 100 proof, but I don't think it's bottled and bond. Either way, that was a new one this year. That one grew on me. So I do like a lot of New Riff products, but this one, not really vibing with it. Moving on. So second place was Glass A. Let's see what that was. We have Duality Double Malt. So this is a ASW product. It's a 110.6 proof, if I remember correctly, and it comes in at around $50, so not super pricey. $20 cheaper than the New Riff, We said this one gave us that bran cereal, some raisin, that lemon drop note, and some cut grass on the finish. Again, I'm not like crazy about it. I don't dislike it, but I'm also not crazy about it. I think if I were to give that one a score per my scale, I think that one would land comfortably in like maybe a 6.2. Yeah, it's decent. It's decent. But what's unique about that one, what's off the beaten path about that one, is that, if I remember correctly, it's malted rye and malted barley, but fermented in the same vessel, right? So that's where the double malt comes from. And duality is this idea of dualism where you have two things that are sort of opposites, right? So that duality in one fermentation vessel is supposed to create a really unique profile. It is unique. I just don't think that it's something I would buy myself and say, hey, I like it enough to have a bottle on my shelf. So 6.2 for me. Innovative, different, off the beaten path. Not something I'm going to put on my shelf, though. First place, then. Yep, this is the Westward Sourdough. Okay, Westward Sourdough. This one is a $100 pour. It's 90 proof, and so I think the whole idea behind this one is that, I forget the guy's name, forgive me. I can look it up real quick. But it's a baker, a star baker of some kind. Let me look it up. Ken Forkish. Ken Forkish. So his French sourdough, do you pronounce it levain? Levain? It's the levying agent in his sourdough bread. So I'm assuming it's a yeast, but they replace the standard yeast with that levying agent, which I'm assuming is a yeast strain as well, in order to ferment their grains for this particular sourdough westward expression. Weird, interesting. Okay. But yeah, we were getting heavy bread notes, lots of honey as well. Yeah, a bit of a fastball right down the middle. If I'm going to give that one a score for my scale, I'm going to land at a 6.6. I think it falls comfortably in the maybe buy section. So if you really get down with American single malt, specifically you like Westward's distillate, but you want to try it with some really heavy bready notes in there, give it a shot. Give it a shot. See if you like it. Again, for me and my money, it's a $100 pour. I'm not sure I am down to clown, even though I have lots of Westward stuff. So hey, that was a really interesting blind, right? Really experimental stuff, really off the grid, off the beaten path stuff. And I'm grateful to have tried these. So if you sent any of these samples in, I think they come from 3 different people. Thank you so much. I think maybe Delicious Dairy sent one in. I think maybe Eric sent one in. I don't recall because I didn't actually have names written down on these sample bottles. So I apologize if I don't call attention to you. But let me know in the comments section if you're like, yep, that one was me. Thanks for trying. Let me know in the comments. Appreciate you guys. All right. Well, on that note, thanks for tuning into the video today. Appreciate y'all. I'll grab this sample bottle over here that's not related to what we did today, but Trail's End. This has been sitting up here for a while. I got to try that one out. That came in from John. Hey, cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age, and I hope to catch you in the next one. But first, thank you so much to our Patreon supporters for funding the bottles that we get to pick up and review here on the channel. I couldn't have this channel without you guys and without your generosity. Also looking forward to our bottle share. Really cool. All that stuff's been sent out. If you want to get involved in cool activities and events like this, feel free to check out our Patreon page. Just to get in the door is $1. It's just $1. And then you can see the events we're doing. You can see the Patreon lounge. You can interact with everybody and be a part of our community. But if you want to get involved in some other stuff beyond that and sort of take it to the next level, you can always do that too. So anyways, we'd love to see you over there. Please feel free to introduce yourself. Hey, bye-bye. I did my outro out of order, so I don't know what to do with my hands.